far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 women growing strong. 100 women where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny. Woman, woman.
As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions toward decolonization. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. By Kay Johnson. Welcome to 100 ABC Fireside Chats. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold project initiated by co-authors and co-founders, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, Dr. Denise O'Neill Green, and Donna Jones Simmons. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as our website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. In addition to our fireside chats on topics that matter to our communities, such as education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, trade union, and so much more, we offer biennial book launching galas and biannual symposiums. The co-authors and co-founders would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for attending today's fireside chat. We know that you will find these sessions educational and inspirational. So sit back, relax, and hear from our brilliant and talented honorees.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I want to begin by acknowledging that I am joining this gathering from the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq people in Nova Scotia. And I offer respect to elders past and present. In the spirit of community accountability, we'll hold today's conversation with respect, care, and courage. In this space, also I acknowledge African Nova Scotians, a distinct people who have been settled on this land for more than 400 years and thrive in 52 historical African Nova Scotian communities and beyond. I invite everyone who has joined in here to attend and learn today to reflect on where they are joining from and those lands where they work, play, and reside. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2026 Fireside Chats, Session 5, Episode number 7, Youth Leadership and Black Excellence. I'm Sylvia Paris-Drummond, pronouns she, her, and I have the honor of moderating today's Black women-led conversation. Today is a celebration, but it's also a strategy session. Because when we talk about youth leadership, we are not talking about leaders of tomorrow. We are talking about leaders right now. Young people who are shaping community impact, education, advocacy, entrepreneurship, creativity, and culture in real time. And when we talk about Black excellence, we are not only naming success, we are naming the values, the discipline, the vision, the care, and the community responsibility that makes excellence sustainable and transferable. We're gathering in a moment where young people are carrying big hopes and big pressures. Today is more than inspiration, it's about practice. What youth leadership looks like in real life, what young leaders need to thrive, and how Black women, through community, culture, and care, help shape spaces where leadership is not just possible, but protected. Our panelists bring lived experiences, community wisdom, and practical strategies. We'll talk honestly, we'll talk solutions, and we'll leave with takeaways that you can use. The conversation will explore 3 core areas: how youth are driving meaningful change, what Black excellence looks like in action, strategies to cultivate and sustain the next generation of trailblazers. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the panelists. And as I go to that part of the program, I invite us to relax into this conversation, put some comments and questions in the chat. Think about the experiences, how they may touch you deeply and may amplify your knowledge. So the panelists I will introduce them all in their bio. And then there'll be a question that each one will read or respond to in that order that will start us off. Okay. So our first panelist, Adebola Adiefoye. Adebola is a social impact innovator, educator, and PhD student advancing equity and systems change across Canada. She is executive director of the Afro Women and Youth Foundation, a registered charity, and team lead at Adebola Adefioye Consulting, where she leads training focused on anti-racism and inclusive practices. Adebola also teaches early childhood education courses at the college level, bringing critical perspectives into post-secondary learning spaces. Her leadership has earned her national recognition, including the King Charles III Coronation Award, the Racial Justice Award in Education, the Ontario Premier's Award, 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women, and Canada's Top 100 Black Women to Watch. Our next panelist, Althea Kadori. Althea is a psychotherapist, clinical supervisor, and wellness visionary who organized the first multidisciplinary wellness hub for entrepreneurs and practitioners. As the founder of Mind's Eye Like Consulting and Community Practice, Inc., she creates healing spaces that center emotional regulation, self-mastery, and community empowerment. Her work bridges mental health, entrepreneurship, and leadership, ensuring that Black and Indigenous communities thrive with intention and strength. Dr. Afua Cooper. Dr. Afua Cooper is a celebrated historian, poet, author, novelist, and scholar. She is currently Distinguished Professor of Black History with Feminist Studies at the University of Toronto. Her 13 books range across many genres of poetry, history, fiction, and children's literature. She is recipient of numerous prizes and awards, including the Shirk Impact Connection Award for Outstanding Research, the Portia White Prize, the J.M. Abraham Atlantic Poetry Prize, the Order of Nova Scotia, and the Bob Marley Award. Dr. Cooper has curated 10 history exhibits. The latest, A History Exposed, The Enslavement of Black People in Canada, was on display at the United Nations in March 2026. With respect to youth leadership and Black excellence, Dr. Cooper would like to focus on two initiatives she established: the Black Canadian Studies Association and the Black Studies Program at Dalhousie University. Lorena Gabriel. Lorena is a Montreal-based communications professional, podcast host, and community leader dedicated to amplifying underserved voices. She is the founder of Crown Project, a nonprofit focused on empowering youth, the creator of the Total R&B podcast, and the co-creator of Morning Detour, Montreal's first hip-hop and R&B morning show. Through her firm, Lorena PR, she continues to champion artists and entrepreneurs who deserve to be heard. And rounding us out, Dr. Sade Kadole. Dr. Sade Kadole is the founder and CEO of Leadership Synergy Institute and a transformational keynote speaker and leadership strategist. She equips emerging leaders and organizations with tools to lead with clarity, confidence, and impact. Passionate mentor and advocate for Black excellence, she is committed to cultivating the next generation of trailblazers. Wow, panelists, you are rocking. You are awesome. Thank you so much for giving your time to be with us. I'm going to, as I said, start us off with one question and then a couple of minutes to respond in the order that I've just read your bios. And then we'll continue on kind of mining into more discussion around this topic. So here's the question. What does youth leadership and Black excellence mean to you beyond the buzzwords? What's one thing you want the audience to hold on to from the start? Adebola, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Hi everyone. I'm happy to be here today. So can you repeat the question one more time? Youth leadership?
Yes, for sure. What does youth leadership and Black excellence mean to you beyond the buzzwords? Just one thing you would want the audience to hold on to from the start. One little teaser point.
Thank you. So youth leadership and Black excellence to me means showing up for what you believe in, showing up in the place that really that you're passionate about, showing up in spaces on issues that you're passionate about, speaking up for yourself and also speaking for other people, and making sure that you're also empowering the next generation.
Thank you. You can keep moving right along.
Okay, I guess I'm next to answer the question. Well, I see Black excellence in three parts. And I think as a practitioner and also someone that offers mentorship spaces to young people, we're looking at the vision. What is that vision that sustains us as a leader? I think many of us that are on this panel have created something from an idea or a need that we needed a solution for in our community. And we are looking at generations that are coming after we have moved on. And we are looking at things that are sustainable. So I find for Black excellence, it's about looking at those future generations and what sustains us, the courage to stand up and make a difference in our community, despite all the overcoming adversaries and challenges that we face. And also, I think for me, and I'm not speaking for my panelists, but I think they also have that responsibility and that accountability to the community to make a difference. And when we noticed that there was some challenges in our community, we decided to step up and come with a solution, which was created by our own ideas and also through the strength of our community. So it's about our vision, it's about our sustainability, and also that courage to stand up and make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. What does Black excellence and youth leadership mean? What does that idea, that concept, indeed that practice, what does it mean to me? I think of some words like courage, compassion, integrity, strength in community, commitment, joy, love. But most of all, I think of the circle of life, because all of those adjectives or nouns that I just threw out can be embedded or be part of this circle of life where we have multiple generations from the beginning of time, if there's such a thing, to know to the future. We all talk about the future, but we talk about the past, but not necessarily something in a linear way, but more in a circular way. So we have the elders, the grandparents, and we have the children yet unborn, and we hold them into this space, into this circle of love. The caring for each other. I mentioned compassion, the excellence, to know that there's this African saying from north to south, to east to west to center, I am because we are. This concept of Ubuntu, standing on the shoulders of those who have gone on and passing the baton to those who are coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. For me, Black excellence is kind of summed up with what all the other panelists had said. I think it's knowing who you are, knowing your history, and also taking all of that and uplifting the community, pushing the culture forward, making sure that you do it with integrity. We're creative people, so creativity too, accountability as well. Even when we have limited resources or different odds that are stacked against us. And then with youth leadership, I think a lot of times we see a lot of things that are motivating and inspiring, but I think also too, just providing youth with tools, tools that they can use, resources that they can use so that they can reach their full potential. So we're not only providing them with confidence, but also helping them be better than the last generation.
Thank you.
Awesome. And just to add to all the voices so far, I'd like to view Black excellence and youth leadership in terms of ownership, in terms of owning our own identity, our own voices, our competencies, and our impacts. Sadly, a lot of our stories are usually told around our achievements in spite of barriers, but time has come for us to own it and reshape the definition of our leadership and excellence in terms of clarity of purpose and the intentionality of our contributions. It's all about knowing who we are, what we value, and how we want to show up in the world. So from get-go, I'd like the listeners to just understand youth leadership and Black excellence in terms of defining our own success on our own terms. And all that starts with self-awareness. No longer about comparison or pressure or what the society or the media say, but who we are deep down.
Okay, so for myself, My background is in criminal law, so I have my BA from York University. I have my paralegal degree from Michigan. I'm currently studying for law school right now. I work at the Yellow Brick House, which is in Richmond Hill, in gender-based violence and family law. So I support women and children fleeing abuse, specifically intimate partner violence. I'm also the founder of a nonprofit called Youth Unlocked, which is a nonprofit that supports youth who have been in conflict with the justice system or at risk, 13 to 29. And we basically help them get them resources, opportunities, and I like to say we give them the opportunity to rewrite their story and allow them to know that there's a future beyond their past and that doesn't define them. I also teach environmental law to high school students. So I've been doing that for around 2 years. I'm also a mentor, so I mentor young girls in law in other areas such as self-confidence, growing up in single parent households and how to navigate that system, especially in your adulthood. And then I'm also a part of the research of homicide for Black survivors under Dr. Sharp at the University of Toronto. So we help, survivors of those who have lost a loved one to homicide here in Toronto. So that's like a little bit about myself.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Laura. And the question that we were using just as a prompt, and Lorena, I'll cue you up that after we hear from Kimora on this question, I'm going to come over to you with something that piqued me when we were having this intro piece. But Kimora, what does youth leadership and Black excellence mean to you beyond the buzzwords? And what's one thing you would want an audience to hold on from the start? So if you just one little kind of seed point, kind of core point that you'd like to share.
Yeah, so can you repeat the last part you said to hold on to?
Yeah, so like one thing you would want the audience, people listening here, to hold on to from the start of our discussion today.
Yeah, so first I'll begin with like Black excellence. So I think that's succeeding in whatever it looks like. So some of you guys already mentioned that. And I don't think that has to be money. It doesn't have to be the job title that you hold. And that's something that we teach our youth is not your identity doesn't come from the position that you hold or like the amount, like monetary or like materialistic value, but like who you are as an individual. And I think when you have like the passion and your characteristics, like that will take you far in life. So it's not like redefining what success looks like. Um,
Mm.
And then also for youth leadership, I think being able to take up space, whatever space that you walk in, whether that be your school, your classroom, the job that you hold, like being able to walk into that space and like people gravitate towards you. They want to like look up to you. They want to, how can I be like this person? So I think that's something that we teach people is to be able to take up space and allow your voice to be heard. And then I think something that I would want them to take away from youth leadership is I used to be a track and field captain, and even now, like I have people reaching out to me asking how to be captain, and I tell them all the time, like leadership is beyond a title. So you could be a leader without that, like that professional title. So just, being a leader without, quote unquote, being a captain, you could be a leader. You could still, lead the team without having the coach saying that you're a captain. Like it goes beyond that. So just the takeaway is like your leadership position isn't the formal role that you need to have to be able to lead someone.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, we've heard people talk about courage and caring, community, and and the kind of being able to express yourself in terms of an individual way. And Marina, with your work that you're doing, I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about what are some of the biggest barriers young Black leaders face when trying to turn their passion for community impact into sustainable work. And we've used that word sustainable a few times too. So do share with us on that one.
I would think for me personally, I think some of the things that I faced, because I'm here in Montreal, so there's always the language of French and English. So just making sure that I'm following those regulations and laws sometimes, even though I do serve the English community, because I'm English myself. So that sometimes is a barrier. A lot of the opportunities that are out there when it comes to funding, a lot of times I see it's more on the French side. So that's another barrier would be funding for me to be able to implement my programs or to have the money to do the different initiatives that I want to do. So I think those are some of the things that may slow us down a little bit. It doesn't stop us, but yeah, it would slow us down a little bit to get over that. And then also too, I think when I first started, I just tried to do everything myself, and not seek like mentorship to help with the direction, and things like that. So I think those are the things that I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so kind of, solution ideas, and maybe Dr. Sade, you work closely with emerging leaders and young professionals. So we're hearing what we've said so far, what might be some practical strategies that communities, organizations, and families can use intentionally to cultivate confident, purpose-driven Black youth who are prepared to lead, as we hear now, lead a youth who is prepared to lead. So what are some ideas and strategy you might have to share with folks listening for that information?
Excellent. Thank you for that question. I'd like to start by saying that in terms of communities, organizations, and families, the concept that comes to my mind is all of us having to work together to make this happen. There's an adage about if you want to walk fast, you can go alone. If you want to walk far, we need everyone to come along. So when I'm looking at organizations, families, and communities, the first thing that I think we need to begin to drive um, further into training and exposing our youth to is our history. Because frankly, I think a lot of that is missing. And when you don't know who you are and where you're coming from, you get distracted by everything and anything. So I think our history needs to be taught more to our emerging leaders, where they understand what our parents have been through, what they're handing over to us, and the amount of, so to say, real estate in terms of experience that our parents have gathered, the people who have gone before us have purchased for us, not in terms of material wealth, but mostly in terms of values that have been handed down. And by so doing, we find that the youth won't be as distracted when society says this is how life should be, or this is how you must define excellence. That said, another thing that comes to mind is that we need to create more exposure in terms of, you really find it difficult to aspire to something you haven't seen. So we need to begin to expose our youth more and more intentionally into rooms where leadership is visible and accessible. We need to start showing them what is possible by what we are modeling ourselves. I mean, there's quite a few other things, but those two will set our youth in the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Alethea, I'm going to see what you have in terms of your background, and if you're in terms of your academic background and your consulting. Maybe you can talk to us a bit about how can emerging young leaders build power collaboratively instead of competitively with Black communities?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that we need to do, and Dr. Sade had mentioned it, is to really start looking at the spaces that we have curated. Are you creating opportunities for young people to be in the same spaces with you? And I know for me, when I had created my own private practice, that was the first thing that I wanted to do, because I remember when I was in the field of child and youth care and also in the psychology field, that there were limited spaces for Black youth or people of color. And I noticed now that I have my private practice and I offer internships and also mentoring. A lot of the students have mentioned to me that I'm the first Black-owned, Black-led private practice that they have experienced and have had experience working in. So that really surprised me, because I remember there being a lot of practices and also organizations that were Black led and Black focused when I was growing up. So I always aspired to be around people that were already doing the work. And for me to carry on that work and be in social justice and also working in mental health, there's amazing Black psychologists and Black therapists in abundance. But for some reason, access was the issue and that was the barrier. They weren't exposed to seeing these people in their career days in high school or in elementary school. Some of us didn't even know that there was a pathway into psychiatry because of the fact that we weren't exposed to that at an early age. And I do remember being exposed to this work in high school. However, the women and the men that had introduced support to me, especially working in groups with families and children that had challenges, they were all white. So there wasn't really that visibility that I was seeing at that time until later on when there was more of a movement in my high school with Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and being around people that wanted you to know more, not only about European history, but about Africa and understanding who we are from the Caribbean, that I was able to expand my ideas and really say that I want to center my work in helping Black and Black Indigenous people. Those opportunities just weren't there as equally in abundance as they were in white spaces.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, and this, many times people are saying we're the one out, we're the only one in spaces as well, in terms of that. To the proverb, Dr. Shade, that you shared with us, maybe Dr. Afua, I'll invite you in to bring in the perspective of parents. So how do you see parents supporting their children to achieve Black excellence?
Thank you, Sylvia. Great question. Parents have to be involved. At the most basic fundamental level, parents have to go to the parents-teachers meetings in primary schools and in high schools. And I chuckle because oftentimes you go to these meetings and it could be a school with 50% Black students and many of the Black parents not showing up. So at that basic fundamental level, get your kid a library card. Where I am in Toronto, there's something like 101 public libraries. Libraries are all about the place. Get them a library card. They have reading programs because sometimes parents are working and they can't be at the library with the child. But there are reading programs. You have tutors and volunteers who are going in to do these reading programs and homework programs. So at that level, once the young person is in university or ready to go off to university, there are a number of scholarships and bursaries that are there. Sometimes you have to go through a lot of pages or website now and see what's available to help the student along. Because once you're talking post-secondary school, earlier we are talking about the cuts to funding, the cuts to university, and now it's going to be more difficult for Black students, for everyone, but Black students in particular, to be paying for university and college tuition because the interest rate is going to go up with respect to OSAP. That's student aid or student loan. So again, it comes back to the collective. In many colleges and universities, there are some what we call Black pathways. So there is a Black legal student or law student association. Same thing for the medical school. But even before you're in these professional schools, from the high schools to universities, U of T has this program, Dalhousie has this program, where you have a Black high school program where like hundreds of students show up on campus and they are given talks about what coming to university, what does it mean, what scholarships, what monies are available, what mentorship programs are available. Then there's also the Black high school graduation, which is tied into the universities. Once you're on campus, there are all these Black Students Association, which are very, very active. So, kudos to Black student leaders on campus and in high schools, because many of them have just, taken the initiative and they are organizing themselves to make a better life for Black students. So from kindergarten right through, I guess if you want to do a PhD, but right through that level, there are supports, maybe not as many supports as we would like, but there are. But once we come together and once we start thinking collectively and collaboratively, things will get easier.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing in this conversation, somewhere this balance of, your kind of individual courage, strength, the collaborations and supports that you need from folks around you, the expertise that you need to be comfortable going to. And so I would say to folks, if there's any particular programs or initiatives that you want to share with audience, like panelists here, or from within the audience itself, please feel free to share that in the chat. This is a knowledge, as I said, opportunity as well. Adebola and Kimura, I'd like you both maybe to take up this question that I'm going to ask now, and Adebola, we'll start with you on it. What do you consider concrete actions leaders can take to strengthen community impact and build a culture that develops future trailblazers?
Yeah, I'll just use examples of what we do in our organization at the Afro Women and Youth Foundation. I think it's important to identify needs in the community. I think that's very, very important. When we were starting the Afro Women and Youth Foundation about 7 years ago in Toronto, we started because there was a child who was bullied in school, and there was no support from the principal, no support from the teacher. But we kind of stepped in and we were able to provide support. And after 2 years, of course, the child struggled for some time at school, but we kept encouraging self-advocacy skills and other strategies for self-care and to manage the situation. And after about 2 years, she won the award for the most confident child in class. And this child has continued to grow and develop those skills that she's now a young leader herself. So in terms of strategies that can be used, I would say it's important to identify skills. It's important to work collaboratively with families, parents. It's also important to check out for opportunities for young people. I know people have talked about scholarships. There's so many of those scholarships, but again, when people don't know about these opportunities, then families will be missing out on them. So at Afro Women and Youth Foundation, for example, we usually do sessions where we inform people about scholarships available, and the youth in our program we also educate them about those scholarships and encourage them to apply, because a lot of times people are not sure how to even apply. SHAD scholarship is one that I would like to use. SHAD is open to everyone, and as a matter of fact, they are even looking for a lot of people from the racialized communities. But when we heard about SHAD about 3-4 years ago, nobody in our community, nobody in my city applied, and we weren't sure why people were not applying. So the following year, we made sure that some people in our program applied. We did Zoom session with the SHAD officials, partnered with some agencies, and after the information session, a few of them applied, and one of our youth members got into the program. Last year, we decided to now go into helping, like providing mentorship and support with the application process, and kind of also supporting families, because some people were struggling a little bit about the application and we're not really coming forward with what the issues were. That's why they weren't applying. So we offered further support, and this year again, another youth member got into SHAD again this year. So again, looking for those opportunities and resources and sharing with families, sharing with young people, encouraging them to apply, giving opportunities for them to build work skills, be it through volunteering or internship, kind of just getting them engaged and developing those leadership and advocacy skills. I would also say that advocacy is another big thing that is very important, because when we talk about social justice and injustices, it's all about advocacy. So how are we amplifying voices of young people to make sure that they get engaged and that their voices are amplified in these areas that they're passionate about? So at Afro Women, we also do youth leadership and advocacy training, where we also talk about all the social issues that is available, And then they go into groups and discuss the ones that they're very passionate about. And then we also give them a chance to create strategies, interventions. What can you do? And for some of these young people, we have given them small grants to implement projects in the community. And this has helped them to know, okay, this is how we can identify problems or challenges or social issues, and I can be a part of creating change. And what can that look like? They can come together in a group of 3, 4, 5 people and do something in the community to make change happen. We also go into schools to collaborate with teachers, the principal, the school board, and all of these are strategies and practical actions that young people can see themselves as change leaders and see themselves as people who can, create change wherever they find themselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate the theme hearing, like there may be things that are out there that we need to find ways to ensure they're communicated, that people know that they exist in terms of programs. Kimura, would you like to respond to this question as well?
Sure. This might sound cliche, but I said like actually doing the work. I think there's a lot of times where like a lot of us say like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, or like this would be great. And then it goes nowhere. And like I've been to a lot of community forums where we do like a lot of research, a lot of our organizations we come together, we're saying these are the issues, these are the issues. It's been several years and I have not heard anything back from these research studies. So I think that goes back into like doing the work and doing the work. I tell people all the time, you don't have to have an organization to make an impact in the world. Impact could literally be mentoring somebody, having the resources that you know of, like a lot of people mentioned. It could be simply reposting something that you've seen, because that one repost can make a difference in that person's life, like a simple repost, posting on your story, just sharing it with someone. So I just say like actually doing the work. When I started my organization, I didn't start it knowing where I was going to go with it, but I started because I knew I wanted to make a change. And by the grace of God, like it's brought me to where I am today, and I've been able to impact so many youth. And they are always, reaching out. We've been able to secure so much funding this year to do programming. So a lot of our programming we focus around career and education. So we do have a career and education conference next weekend, and that's just to get youth exposed to the different resources that are out there, applications. Because I know when I was in university, some people had mentioned it's kind of like one of those things. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. So there's a lot of. By the time I finished my BA, I wish I had known that I could have got a certificate instead of taking like random electives. I could have got a certificate to put to use and rather just taking like classes just to like fill those gaps. And then also graduating from BA, the career I have now, it did take some time. So, learning how to network, learning how to put yourself out there, that's something that we're going to be focusing on. But we also do, like I said, we focus on youth who've been impacted by the justice system. So allowing them to, give that space of like somebody is here that is rooting for you and they don't see you just at your past, they see you at your now and beyond that. So we do like CPR training. We did a gun violence program last year because there was an incident that happened in Regent Park, and we want, especially now in Toronto, like the gun violence is like very heavy for the younger ages. So we want to get them knowledgeable on how to like deter from that. But if you do find yourself in that situation, how can we come back from that? So we do that. So I just said like doing the work and collaborating, like that's another thing. This organization didn't get to where it was by myself. I know Lorena mentioned not doing everything on your own, and that was something I struggled with because I was so independent. So when I started, I was like, okay, like I have to give some things to my team members, and they tell me all the time, like if you need anything. I just had a family emergency. My team members took over the organization for like a whole month, and they were able to get everything done. But just collaboration, I think it's so big for collaboration and not gatekeeping resources or gatekeeping that, like actually working together to make the difference. Because sometimes we all have different visions within our own organization, but we all know we're trying to make a difference in the world. And I think a bigger difference and a bigger impact could be brought together if we're all like collaborating and just getting together.
You make me think of the proverb, sticks in a bundle are unbreakable, right? We're all in this in a team. So thank you all today for your responses and your suggestions. As I said, seeing these themes about still hearing, about making sure that people know what's out there, like what is the way that we're going to do that in terms of that. Lorena, I wanted to come back to you and ask you a question in terms of gaps. So what gaps did you notice in your community that inspired you to create initiatives for Black culture and youth empowerment?
Thank you for that question. I think it goes back to what Kamara was saying, Dr. Sade, and even Adebola about exposure. So, one of the things, like I started it because I knew there was things that I wish people would have taught me when I was
Mhm.
younger. So that's how I started. But then by actually speaking to youth and seeing what feedback I was getting from them, I was able to tailor things better to better provide for them. And so one of the things was careers. For me, I started working in PR like in my late 20s. And everybody that I worked with, they're like, yeah, I've been doing this since I was like 18, 19, and I didn't know it even existed. I
Mhm.
didn't have access to it. I didn't know in my community where I'm from, like nobody knew what PR was. So I started a career exploration series where I started doing it on my Instagram page, just myself. I would reach out to women, Black women, women of color that were in jobs that we may not even realize exist, so that people can know there's different jobs out there, there's different pathways. And then I started doing that within schools, especially with kids that are in different programs where they feel like they're not going to graduate, or they're not going to, or they don't know what to do after graduation, just so that they're exposed to different things. So for me, it's all about exposure, letting people know what's out there, the different possibilities, that, a pathway doesn't just mean one direct way of like, graduate from high school, college, then university. There's so many different things that are out there, so many different ways to get there. And I've been very fortunate with the people that I've connected with to speak to these students, to connect with them after visiting the school or speaking to them virtually, to connect with those students, to kind of like mentor them. So that's something that I find really important. So gaps like that, just listening to what the kids need and trying to fulfill that the best that I can.
Mm, yeah, thank you for that. So it sounds like you bring in your own lived experience, but valuing that there's other perspectives too, and kind of using that to strengthen. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that as well. Um, Alethea, could I come back to you? I'm tempted to go to sustainability question, but I want to ask you another one first before we start to delve more into that one. So thinking about young Black leaders building their sustainable wellness and initiatives, what is this thing, around kind of a mindset piece that maybe needs to be talked about here too?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I had touched on it a little bit, but Dr. Fu was also mentioning it. Just understanding our history and learning about who we are and where we're from. And that hasn't always been embedded in our Canadian history and the things that we've learned. Just recently, these books are coming out. Now, the Board of Education, they are making it imperative that we learn about our history and our
Mhm.
people. And it also starts at home. Parents just sharing their stories of how they grew up and how they came here. And in turn, that lived experience and that personal experience really helps us when we have to make some decisions about um, career and education, because we want to know, what did you do before? And what did it look like before you came here? And now that you're here, we have opportunities, but not everyone, unfortunately, has been afforded the opportunities that has brought us here today. And especially for people on this panel, we know that growing up here in Canada or in Toronto or whatever province is a struggle. And it's a challenge. And not all of us that we've grown up with have made it in these spaces. So for me, visibility is so important, making sure that the education that I share with my students in my practice is real life experience. I mean, they have things that are in a textbook which you can apply, but to integrate the things that you actually know about yourself and who you are really makes a difference to the youth that are seeking support and looking for people that look like us. They want us to be able to share with them what the experiences are like so that they don't have to go through some of the challenges that we had to. And we know that once we have opened the door and created these spaces for young people to step through, then they will continue to support our ideas and also the space because they know that they can trust those spaces and that they know that they can get that support that they need. So the mindset also goes with it to be able to master your emotions, control your breathing, to slow down and not be impulsive, and make a decision that's right for you. I mean, some of us have gone through things where we can look back and realize we didn't make the right decisions. But now that we have that information and we're avoiding some of the traumatic experiences, then we can make those educated, informed choices that actually help us thrive and sustain our mind. And for entrepreneurs and young people in entrepreneurship, that's what they want to know. Do they have that mental capacity to push through? Some of us do, but we didn't do it alone. We did it with support. And that's what I want young people to know. And I wanted to share that one of my students that I had last year, she received 90% in one of her courses because she was able to working community. She got instruction from me when I had her in my practicum, and then she integrated that knowledge based on the textbook, and she was able to excel. So for people to think that we can't do it, we can when we have the right support and the right instructions, then we can apply that knowledge anywhere and be successful.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I'm hearing us talk about identity in many perspectives in terms of, cultural, racial, family identity, in terms of that. And I also feel like I'm hearing in this conversation about role models and not necessarily formally said or intentionally said, but that if we're in front of folks, we have the opportunity to be a role model in terms of what we do. And so, often we think about formal and informal, again, mentorship programs. Dr. Sade, I wanted to come back over to you and from your experience in terms of mentoring young leaders and building leadership programs, what does when we think about identity, what does authentic Black excellence look like in today's world? Right? And how would young people maybe define it from your engagement with folks?
So this is so, so key and in line with everything that has been discussed so far. And I like the fact that I get to piggyback on what Alicia just shared, because this boils down and it goes back to support and mentorship. Not all of them will be formal, but it's very important for our young leaders and youth to have access to these kinds of support, because that's the kind of support that moves beyond lectures or advice and training, the kind that gives them access beyond those formal training sessions per se. The reason why we're kind of struggling, I found as I work with young leaders, is that we don't usually have the sponsorship. The idea of someone that will mention your name in rooms that you don't have access to, people and places that can create real opportunities for us, like recommend your names. And part of the struggle we have is sometimes we insist on mentorship and support from our community alone. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have access to some of those rooms. We are still struggling and working and strategizing to get into those rooms. There are people who are already in those rooms, and if they just mention your name or support you or give any form of backing to what you stand for, you get opportunities. So I think our community also, there's a very, very important need to go beyond our immediate community and start to seek allies who are already in those rooms and who have the clout to draw us in. Because there's a lot of talent out there, but how do you even showcase what you know if you don't get the opportunity, right? So Black excellence, I see a lot of it being stifled by the fact that we don't get access to display. there's an opportunity, you're good at it, but no one is even allowing you to show what you can do.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I feel like this is, you're probably listening into this at Ebola and thinking, I think I might have some connection with what was just said there. So from your kind of vantage point and what you're doing, if you were advising an emerging leader, somebody may have sponsored them, they may have an informal role model, there might be some mentoring. So if you were advising them, what specific steps should they take to position themselves for positive influence and advocacy?
Yeah, I would say that they need to pay attention to self-care. A lot of times, this work that we do, advocacy work and community work is can be very heavy, and it's important for people to know that self-care is priority, because if you don't take care of yourself, then how will you be able to help other people? So self-care, and I'll also say community care. It's important to find a good community who can support, that we can get support from when it is needed. And also, in general, I would say support system, and that can be, friends, it can be families, anyone that we can, rest on or lean on when things get heavy. That is very, very important. And also, ongoing learning is one thing. It is important to continue to learn and develop expertise in the areas of our passion, not just passion, passion is very important, but also in the areas where we continue to find needs in the work that we're doing. Because as we continue to work, there will be things evolving and identifying more needs for the people that we serve. So it's important to continue to learn and grow in those areas of knowledge so that we can be able to provide support that is needed and also strength-based. I would also say that it's important to start small, because if you have big vision and you're thinking of, oh, you want to have all the funding or all the resources before you start, you may never do anything. I remember when I started the Afro Women and Youth Foundation in 2019, we were only using a small space that a shelter in Toronto, North York gave us at that time. And from that community space, that little space in the shelter, we have saved over 7,000 people right now. We have gotten funding of over $1 million, providing community services and doing social justice work and helping newcomers and Black families in general. So again, if we did not start that work in 2019, we won't be where we are today. There's still a lot of work to be done. However, we're very grateful for where we're at right now and still looking to grow and develop in the work that we're doing. And because the question also mentioned something about advocacy, I want to say that for advocacy, it's important to also collaborate and have partnership or joint coalitions, because that way the message that we want to pass out there can be better amplified. And it's also important to use storytelling. Storytelling is big in the work that we do. We have a project called BIPOC Stories for Change. With storytellings, people can be able to share their stories, their lived experiences, and that can be put into or turn into advocacy tools. We have some of our videos on YouTube, on our social media platforms, and some people that I know are the colleges who are professors and instructors are using some of those videos as assignments, are using them to create assignments for some of their students in the area of social justice and anti-racism. So again, if those stories were not told by people who share their stories, if we didn't turn those stories into digital products, maybe the people who are currently using those stories in the school system today may not have access to them. So again, it's important to leverage digital platforms. It's important to leverage coalitions and networks and association. I remember there was a project we did one time, and we were able to collaborate in an organization, and they have a national platform, and we're able to do a national webinar. So again, that's a platform that we would not have been able to access if we did not do that collaboration. So collaboration is very important. Leveraging digital tools is very important. Starting small, no matter how little it is, but being clear about the vision and how you want to move forward. It's also important to be able to recruit volunteers, people who are passionate about the work that you're doing, and work with them respectfully. And when there's some money, to be able to compensate them for their time, it's also important to do that. So those are some of the
Thank you.
strategies that I think will be helpful for emerging leaders.
Thank you. Thank you. I also kind of want to set up the next two questions in a row because I hope that they'll feel like that they feed into each other. And so we've talked and again in various ways about how we can think about strengthening youth, and we mindful about how systems and structures can undermine as well, just how they're established. So Dr. Afua, I'm going to be asking you to maybe talk to us a bit about what you think that we can do to save, for youth who at risk, and sometimes we use the phrase at potential. And I wonder about that because it sounds like it's like a cover up for the real thing that people are experiencing in their life. But I'm not the panelist speaking, so I'll leave that question in terms of your response. But Kimura, I'm also wanting to go to you right after Afu, and maybe you can give us some specific moment or experience that inspired you to advocate for justice involving youth and why that was important and part of to create the pathway that you did. So we'll come to you, Kimura, after Afua. Who would you?
So the question is,
Yeah. So how do we save youth? Like, think about engaging with saving youth that have been identified as at risk.
okay. Well, I just put something in the chat, and it's a link to Canada's Black Justice Strategy, which was unveiled toward the end of last year by the federal government. And the justice strategy was rolled out because of calls from the 2007 United Nations report, the working group that came to Canada and did interviews in various Black communities. And then they produced this report. And one of the revelations in that report, well, it really wasn't a revelation to us, but to them, was the overrepresentation of Black people, especially Black youths, in the criminal justice system, and that Canada has to respond to that, to address that. The other impetus behind the Black Justice Strategy was also the first decade of the United Nations for people of African descent that just ended in 2024. And now there's a second decade. And Canada was a sponsor of the second decade. Haven't done basically nothing in the first decade. Canada came on board for the second decade. And so the Black Justice Strategy, because as most people know, there's an overrepresentation at every level, whether it's in policing, whether it's in the judiciary, i.e., the courts, and thirdly, in the carceral institutions. And so this report or the response, which is a justice strategy, has something like 114 recommendations. And I'm not telling people to read all 114, but you can if you want. But there are some key recommendations that are there in entrepreneurs making funding available to young entrepreneurs, because oftentimes when you get caught up in the justice system, it's very difficult to find work after. So underemployment, unemployment is one could say it's an epidemic in the Black community, especially in the youth community. So as I'm here thinking about Black excellence and youth leadership, there is that segment of the population that is that really, really need help and need support. And that's a population that's caught up in the criminal justice system. And it's a punitive system because you may have what for many people might be a minor sentence. It's going to impact your whole life unless you become like an author or a rapper and your boss or a self-made millionaire or something like that. Impacts the life of your family members. So not only is there recommendation with respect to entrepreneurship and grants, but also how we access the CJS, which is the criminal justice system, briefs to lawyers and to judges and so on. So take your time, because everybody here, it seems, are involved in some way, shape, or form with youth, and the CJS is one aspect of our youth community. And look at that. We all have been talking about the role of education, the role of history in particular. And I just want to say, I'm going to put it in the chat too, that one of the things I do as a teacher, as a historian, and as a poet, is I'm the principal investigator for a website called Black People's History of Canada. And there are so many learning resources on that website, and we keep adding resources, right? They are webinars on Black history. There are webinars on poetry and literature. There are teachers and learners guide, lesson plans. There are just a host of resources on that website. And many of the resources were put together by young people. There are resources that speak specifically to the Black youth community. So look at the Canada Black Justice Strategy. Look at the Black People's History of Canada website. I think, education is crucial, and responding to criminal justice system, because that's a system that has really, really impacted the Black community in a very negative way. That's thank you, Setu.
Oh, now, thank you. Thank you. Kimura?
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit of my upbringing, but it was also majority high school. So since eighth grade, I knew law was my passion. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know exactly what area I wanted to go into. But in the 10th grade, there was a classmate I had, and we were just having a discussion, like all of us, we were just talking. And he just told me he was going to go to prison one day. And I was the one who was like more intrigued. Like I wanted to know why, and everyone was kind of like taken back. They're a little scared. But I kind of asked him like, why did he think that? And he said like all the men in his life, that's the path they took. And then it kind of broke my heart in that moment because he kind of already played that position based on his family, and he didn't see no other way other than that was the path that he would take. And unfortunately, he did go down that path when we were 16, and then he just got convicted this year. But that stuck to my head was just like, he just put himself in that box immediately. So when I did my undergrad, there was a year that was dedicated to research, and I decided to research youth and gangs. I wanted to understand why they joined it. And when I did that study, I saw my younger version in them. So I saw myself through them because I grew up in a single parent household, and a lot of them grew up in a single parent household. Majority, the father was absent, mine was absent as well. But the only difference between me and them was that I had great role models, and that was something that was brought up prior. So it was like I had a mom who was really on me, go to school, focus on your sports. So, I was in track and field. And then I had two older siblings who were able to help me, and then like a great family beyond that. So that was the only difference is like, I had the same their experiences, but I did have like a community around me who was making sure that I was okay. And then some of the experiences when, growing up with my dad, like that was something I had to like navigate and do that. But then you kind of have like empathy. So that was something that I was able to empathize. It's like I understand how you got to that point. I understand how you were able to put yourself in that position. And then that was kind of like transition me to start the organization. So after I graduated, it was just an idea that came to my head. And I said, I want to support youth. And I also think that's a big group that often gets overlooked because once you do something, you get labeled as this is what you've done. And that's also why I'm a big advocate for rehabilitation and reintegration. I focus more on restorative justice than punishment because I do think the system is a little messed up because you put someone in the system, it kind of creates more problems than the person who already went in there. It just doesn't do any good if you're not going to help the person and then you expect them to come out doing better, and that's not the case. So that was something that I wanted to help youth and being able to let them know that there is a community who is supporting you. And sometimes you could be like that one person, that one difference in somebody's life that can make them choose a different path or see beyond what the person, my classmate, he didn't see beyond that because he didn't have no one around him telling him that's not the path you have to take. Like there's other paths that you could take. So that's kind of like what made me start this and just going through because I do get asked a lot, especially like I was in Halifax and I was advocating for people in prison. A lot of people were like, "But why?" I said, "There's still people," and I always say like people who have gone down that route, they still have human rights. Um, Even if you don't think so, they have rights. So that was something that I really wanted to like advocate for and make sure that they have that. And if you start earlier too with young people, that could change their trajectory. Even if you start later, but I do think the earlier you start, the more impact that you create and change the trajectory of their life. So that was kind of the two experiences that made me start. Was just like growing up and seeing myself in them, and then realizing that I do have great role models in my life, and then being able to support them. And also, I think when you're able to relate and you're able to like show up and be like, "Hey, I've been there too," it shows them that they're not alone in their circumstances or their experience. And you're able to show them that, there's other people who've been there just like you. You're not the only one, but we can help you get down a right path.
Thank you for that. I almost did a shout out Halifax. That's where I'm at right now. Said that area. So I hope your experience was great while you were here. Um, I've noticed like lots of nodding from all of us or here on the panel in terms of what folks have said and any comments they've heard. I just want to invite any one of you want to take up something particular you heard and expand on that a little bit. Not just these last comments, but in general, any kind of comments.
May I say something, Sylvia? Because thanks. Because I feel in many ways we're kind of dancing around a particular issue. And for me, that issue is white supremacy. We talk about role models, and earlier I mentioned that they have this high school program. They have it in so many universities, but I'm familiar with the one at U of T and at Dalhousie where you bring the kids on campus and you bring all kind of role models, engineers, professors. I've participated in those programs for years and end. You have organizations like the Black Business and Professional Association, so many associations and organizations that have the Jamaica Canadian Association. They have like a role model day, so on and so forth. So we have many of these public programs with role models, and maybe many of our kids, as has been stated, are not being exposed to them. But the point I want to make is that it's not for a lack of role model. I was reading a small biography of a person from the University of Alberta. And she was saying she's a Black woman from Jamaica, and she came to Alberta to do her PhD. And she was saying what saved her at that university was because she had come from a place, a territory, a country, Jamaica, where she was loved. She had role models. She might have been the daughter of a single parent, but it didn't matter because all her teachers from primary school to high school to her first degree at the University of the West Indies were maybe 98% Black. So she was in a society where Black people or Blackness was valued. Coming to Canada, it was a culture shock in so many ways for her. Because now she has to deal with the racism and the anti-Black racism and turning in her essay, and the professor asking her, did you really write that essay? Because it was apparently an excellent essay, Black excellence, and he didn't believe that she wrote it because of his perception of what a Black person is capable of. No, that's these are all symptoms of white supremacy. So I want to say, as long as we say we're gonna live in Canada, be in Canada, raise our children in Canada or grandchildren, whatever for the next 1,000 years, I don't know if the planet survives that long, then it is going to be a struggle. even when we put these associations and these foundations and programs in place, it is going to be a struggle because this system runs on the logic of white supremacy. And we have to know that. And I don't think we can really put our head under the whatever the phrase is, stuck our head in the sand, because there is and so many reports have been done. This logic of anti-Black racism animates the system that we live in Canada. So we have to be prepared to be Harriet Tubman, whether or not we want to be.
I add something as well.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think something that helped me when I was younger was removing the idea of what my help should look like. Because I do think it's really, really important to have representation that looks like you, but I also think it's really, really important to take on that help where it's coming from like other races who are looking to help you, like genuinely help you, and removing of like, I'm not gonna have help from them because they don't look like me. I was able to take up a space where there was many races who were offering support, they were offering mentorship. And although like I think it's really important to have like representation that looks like you, there is so many like, if they have money and you need it, like, go to those where there's money, where there's opportunities, resources, like don't shy away from that just because they don't look like you. So I think that's really important for you to also understand, like, yes, have that representation, but don't try to remove the idea of like what my help should look like. And because they don't look like this, I'm not going to accept that help from them.
Thank you for that.
I can also add to that. Thank you, Dr. Offer, for bringing that up. I know that white supremacy is a big issue that we have, and I don't know. Sometimes I ask if all of the work that we're doing is actually, changing the system. We know we can see some little changes happening here and there, but the kind of change that we want to see, are we really getting there anytime soon? I don't really know, but I think we still have some hope, because we are still doing the work that we're doing, and some people are now beginning to see some representation of the people who look like them. For example, in academia, when I came to Canada 10 years ago, I didn't have any professor in my early childhood education program when I did my child development until I got into my master's program. That was when I had like a Black professor, and that kind of inspired me to continue to learn and study. And I wanted to become that professor that I longed to have for a very long time, and I didn't have. So I think, and I'm still on that journey, I'm not there yet, but I now see a lot of people when I teach who will say like, oh, it's good to have you around. And I've also I was teaching a course where somebody came to me and was asking me if I was going to teach the entire semester because she didn't want to have me as a professor. And she's never had any Black professor, and she does not just feel comfortable having me. And I'm like, that's so rude. And I wasn't even sure how to handle that. So again, it's a lot of, it's problematic, but I think as long as we continue to show up and also inspire other people, I feel like that's all we can do. And hopefully we see the big change that we want to see in Canada or around the world.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to tap on too, and as part of what I said in my people's acknowledgement in terms of African Nova Scotian historical context, and when some of that flows up into Ontario known as well. So that context of being, here, over that 400 years and the different migrations that brought people, I think is also kind of a strength learning for folks as well, around this word of resilience, which often gets to be kind of supposed to be a positive like kind of mantle that you wear, whereas sometimes it's just used against you, because then the system and the structures can keep going on the way they are because you're resilient, you're strong, and you just keep kind of bearing it and ongoing. So I hear that in these conversations that are being talked about as well. I just wanted to also acknowledge in the chat where someone had said creating these opportunities for exposure. So the things we've been talking about must be a collective endeavor, the village in action. There's too much focus on individualism pulling one's self up by one's own bootstraps. So I thought that was just a comment I want to share for folks in terms of hearing. And as the saying goes, wow, time flies, right? And this all such great sharing information and such wonderful ideas. And there's still time for folks too, if you have something to drop in the chat about information you want to share, direct them with folks, that would be great to kind of know as well. So for me, as we think about like kind of maybe leaving this space with something again, kind of in a sense, the way that we started. So we came in thinking about what might be kind of a teaser comment about advice in terms of youth and youth leadership. And so I would like, again, in terms of the panel, to invite that type of questioning. And so I'm wondering if you could do the complete this sentence for me type exercise as we're moving forward. And we can do it in popcorn style. We don't have to necessarily go. Just want to make sure we don't miss anybody's opportunity in terms of time to kind of to make a comment. So here's your opening prompt. Did the professors in the room like that? The teachers in the room like that? Educators. So here's your opening prompt. One thing I want every young Black leader to know is.
Should we write that down somewhere?
Hmm?
Are you going to ask us?
I'm asking you, and then you're going to jump, and you're going to have to start now, Afua, because you came in. So,
Okay.
one thing I want every young Black leader to know is
their history, and 2, that they are fly.
One thing I want every young Black leader to know is. Jump on in, anyone.
There will always be racism, systemic biases, like we've all heard. We don't have control over how other people behave. What we can control is the fact that we build systems, we build capacity, we study the systems and look for the things where we can show up as our authentic selves, knowing that systems exist. Those systems were built when they were built, they didn't have us in mind. That said, what ways can we empower ourselves so that we are not limited by those systems, or that we use them as stepping stones to rise and shine?
Thank you. One thing I want every young Black leader to know is. Alethea, I think I saw you trying to come in before.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was trying to get in there. Yeah, I just want them to be able to know that there's other leaders like yourself, and like Kimura said, expand on what that leader looks like that you can get some support and mentoring from. And also, my important thing is for them to take care of your mental health and your wellness. Your mind is your mind, and without taking care of that, it's going to be hard to function and do the things that you want to do. So, yeah, once you are able to manage your thoughts and your emotions, you're able to make some amazing decisions. So, make sure you reach out to the people that are going to support you with intention and also accountability.
Thank you. Who would like to pop in next and complete that? Help us keep moving along time frame.
I can go. I like to let them know that there are still a lot of kind people who are willing to help. So don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it, and I hope you get it.
Thank you.
I'll go next. I think one thing would be to know that the work that you're doing matters. I know sometimes it's not easy doing all the work that we're doing. So just to know that your work matters, and also too, if you do have an idea, to go and try it out. Even if it doesn't work, or if it does, it's still great that you tried it. And then also to know that there's always different ways to get there. So like people were saying before, the help may look like from somebody different than we initially had in our head or who we wanted to reach out to, because there's different ways to get to our goal.
Thank you so much.
I can go. I would say I would want them to know that there is success and failure. So reimagining what failure looks like and what you can gain and learn when you are going through your downs, when you are succeeding in that. And then also, I would say you're in complete control of your future. So if you say you want to do something, it's up to you to do those steps, and you'll be able to do it if you put your mind to do it and you like work hard. Then there's nothing that you can't limit yourself to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you all panelists so much. Some of the chats is acknowledging like with gratitude what you brought in terms of your information. So appreciate it. Love the conversation. If there's any folks that want to look to contact you, I think you might see some LinkedIn searches and such or other ways to make that happen. But yes, very much appreciation for the time. Much appreciation to the folks that have managed our tech to support our work, and to all of those who were able to sign in for this session today. Thank you for taking your time on this Sunday to be with us. Earlier in the chat, the next week's program was posted as well, so we'll hope to see people there. So thank you all once again.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment. It's your time.